One of the most important lessons I ever learned is you just can't stay short a stock that's breaking over the VWAP. And that was the first enlightening moment because I'm a big shorter. And that trade, it started to save me money.
This is the How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast, brought to you by 10MinuteStockTrader.com, where we cover finance, stocks, options, entrepreneurship, education, and money. And here's your host, voted one of the top 100 people in finance, Christopher Ewell. Hey there, traders. Welcome back to today's How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast. Today, we have a special lesson for you. I'm putting it here on the podcast because I really believe that this is going to provide you massive, massive value. And that's what I'm trying to do here. And hey, listen, if this podcast was useful to you at all, I really highly suggest that you go check out the full trading course at AIStockTradingSystem.com. That's AIStockTradingSystem.com. Markets are people. People are predictable. Outlier can show you how to track market fear and greed with artificial intelligence on over 1,300 of the largest market cap names. Visit outlier.com to learn more. That's OVTLYR.com. They have a free pilot program for the rest of 2021 so you can get access to right now at OVTLYR.com. That's OVTLYR.com. Hey, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified every time we give you more tools, tips, and tricks to help you trade faster and trade smarter every single week. Hey there, traders. Welcome back to today's How to Trade Stocks Options podcast. Today, I have a special guest in line, a former comedian turned questionable stockbroker turned day trader. This is Kenny Glick from hitthebid.com. Kenny, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I like that intro. That's good. That sums it up. All right, take care, everybody.
Yeah, there you go. No. I'm very much, having my team go out and book guests and everything. And we saw that you were on Chat with Traders, and I was like, he sounds like a perfect guest for our show. So let's get Kenny on today. So tell us about yourself, Kenny, and tell us, obviously, as soon as you get done telling us about yourself, tell us why you're the most jacked up you've ever been after today's market session.
Well, today's market session, I think I'm going to write a book about exactly what happened today because a lot of people are going to want to know. We are in the midst of what I thought would be something left in the past. I've been trading my whole life pretty much. I've seen, the 97 into 99 rally. I've seen the crash of 2000. I've seen, 2007 and obviously this last pandemic rally. But what we're witnessing right now is an epic short squeeze across the entire market. And the joke of what's going on right now is we're legitimately looking for the most worthless, terrible stocks that we could think of. And those have been the monstrous winners. The days of buying Pfizer and Bank of America based on earnings and fundamentals, that doesn't even exist in this market. I've been saying that for years. Fundamentals are done for. But now these last couple of weeks into today have obviously proven my theory that fundamentals have no place in trading. And I don't even think they have any place in investing anymore. So it's incredible what we're witnessing. It really, really is.
I just recently had a video. I re-aired something that was a speech by Warren Buffett, and he was it was called something like how long can the market stay at all-time highs? And basically the gist of it was Warren Buffett was saying, hey, look, there's crazy people out there. They're going to do crazy things for a lot longer than you think they are going to. And it seems like that's exactly what's happening right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was looking for Enron and WorldCom today. Come on, bring them. I mean, I'll resurrect Enron and WorldCom right now. That's the market we're in. And I mean, we're talking about almost, again, one of my favorite stocks is a coal company right now. Who in their right mind is buying coal stocks? I am, because the name of the game is it bankrupt? Are there people buying the stock? I want in. So, I mean, I don't want to date this video in this interview, but let me tell you, whatever this day is, let's date it, because on June 6, 2021.
It's June 8th, Kenny.
Get it right. June 8th, exactly. I've lost my mind. I mean, I didn't have much left to lose, but I'm telling you, this day is going to live in infamy in the world of day trading, because it really just is a glaring indication of, if you're a day trader, and again, this goes for most day trading, swing trading, not as far as investing, it's just trade what you see. Stop trying to make too much sense of what it's all about and the why these are happening. There's one why. It's a short squeeze, and there's a lot more people doing this than there were over the last 5 or 6 years. Day trading, because of the pandemic, has now become really, really popular again. Mm-hmm. And there's more and more people joining in on this frenzy. So right now, I don't like calling them meme stocks. I call them frenzy stocks. This is a frenzy right now, and just a squeeze going across all time and space. It really is. I never thought I'd get this excited about day trading ever again. And I'm freaking out a little bit. And it's a good time to be doing an interview.
Yeah, absolutely. So what Kenny was saying earlier, when we first got on the line, he was telling me the stocks he traded today. And I was like, oh, I'm in all the boring stuff like Pfizer and some other things. So I totally missed the move that he was talking about today. So Kenny, whenever you're looking to trade, like obviously this is an unusual circumstance. Right. What are you looking at? What speaks to you as to what's interesting? What's popping?
So here's the funniest thing. This whole market is a pivot for me. I am not, I was born into momentum trading because that's all I knew. I never traded charts. One of your guests that you had on, a couple of months ago, and one of the person on Chat on Traders, Zach Hurwitz, a hero of mine, also Brian Shannon. I started listening to what Zach was telling me, because Zach became a friend of mine. He came to my chat room and he watched the way I trade. And he said, you're just maybe inadvertently trading around VWAP. Do you know that? And I knew what VWAP was, but I never realized how important it would be as far as a day trading tool. So what I did was, for about, 3 or 4 months, I just sat there watching the VWAP levels and, corresponding to how I was trading. And then again, another 6 months worth of it. And I just started watching what I was already doing and plotting my own charts around these specific levels. They happen to be VWAP and what Brian and Zach were talking about, multiple time frame VWAPs. So to answer your question, I went a long way to get back to the easy answer. My real trading style is gap reversions on earnings reports. So if something's gapped up on an earnings report, no matter what, good or bad, if the gap is up, I'm looking to sell. And what I've noticed is one of the best trades is that if the stock is gapped up and then breaks under the VWAP, almost 80% of the time, you're going to get a decent follow-through move to the prior day VWAP. And let me tell you, for about 3 years, that's the only trade I did. And it was phenomenal. If they're gap down, same scenario. Gap down, you look for some strength. And when does that strength come along? When it starts to get closer to the VWAP. The shorters or the accumulators who haven't got their entire position start to panic and frantically start to buy. And what you have is a gap down that's bought and or gap sold or gap up that's sold all around the VWAP. And let me tell you, that was all I did until these last 2 or 3 months. Like normally today, I'd be looking at MRVL, Marvel. I'd be looking at what was the other company that reported? I don't even remember now because that's usually what I'm doing. But now we are just going to these momentum stocks where VWAP's giving us a little bit of a heads up when the squeeze is going to happen. But once they go parabolic, you really can't use VWAP because you're so far away. And what normally would happen is when you go parabolic, you usually revert back down to the VWAP. That's not even working right now. So it's all momentum and just raising your stops as you go along. And, the hope and faith trade. Right now you're hoping, then you have faith that they're going to go higher. And this is as close to 1999 as we've ever been. And I'll tell you something, this is now better than 1999. And I never thought I would say that.
Better in what way? The liquidity?
Oh, better because a lot of these stocks are coming back from being slaughtered. So you have an indication, you have an idea of where they can get back to. 1999, every stock was hitting all-time highs almost every day. You didn't really get a feel for where they were going to go. You were really nervous because you were looking at a $30 stock. Next thing you know, it's at 50, then it's at 70, then it's at 110 and 120. You kind of didn't really know how to judge that. Here, we have stocks that are being squeezed and you see where they came from. You saw the resistance back from 6 months ago. So once they got over those multiple time frame VWAPs, that's when we started to get involved. And that's why I'm proud to say all these stocks that are in play, me and my crew, we've been in these for weeks now. No, maybe not holding them, but we're familiar with where we believe they were going and why we should be in them. And most of them are the junkiest of the junk. And that's what makes it fun and just ironic and just utterly ridiculous. But that's the environment we're in. And if there's anybody who knows how to be ridiculous and not take this serious, it's me. So it's fitting everything I like about trading right now.
So how did you get into trading when your history was in stockbroking and in stand-up comedian?
Well, I mean, it's a funny story. I was doing comedy in Brooklyn, and somebody came up to me at the end of the show, and I'm thinking, I'm excited. This guy's wearing a suit, and I thought maybe maybe he's a producer or somebody who works in TV. Turned out to be just a stockbroker. He's like, yeah, I heard your bit. You're kind of funny. You could probably use your sense of humor to sell stocks. You're pretty personable. I know you're broke because you're doing stand-up comedy and live with your mom. And I was like, you know what? I'll show up. I like the stock market. I knew enough about the market to see what was going on. And in I rolled. And it was basically all the same movie. I lived that movie, The Boiler Room, The Wolf of Wall Street, all those movies that were written around that time zone. I was right there for it. And, once I saw how the sausage was made, being a stockbroker was not where I was, where I wanted to be. And luckily for me, just as I was walking away from the industry, that's when day trading kind of was born, where we were finally able to trade our own account. You remember SOES, SOES, Small Order Execution System. That was first created. And the idea was to give the smaller investor a little bit of a level playing ground, but we used it as a way to just trade in and out of stocks and use the systems that were built. And we basically created an industry. So I was right there as, basically a founding father of day trading nation, if you want to call it that, as some people do. I'm not a fan of the nation word, but I was right there for the birth of it. And that's why now, fast forward, 22 years later, with VWAP as my sword of justice, I take everything I've learned and I revolve it around the VWAP, and I've made a nice niche for myself. Of course, today being a completely different day, but most of the time, very specific. Earnings and stocks in the news, traveling around VWAP and multiple time frame VWAPs is my bread and butter. But because the bread and butter has been so good, I get to go bat crazy on these names today and try to have some fun, because really this is where the money is at right now. These absolutely absurd moves, and just, trying to remain disciplined enough to take advantage of some of these crazy moves.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a point, at some point when you're talking about, nobody knows how it's going to play out. But I think a lot of people are going to get hurt, and I don't want to be that guy where it's like, oh, everyone's going to get hurt, they can't play. But it's an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to play with it, right? And if you're smart, you can take your profits along the way. And really, at the end of the day, if something's in a trend, we're all trying to catch trends one way or another. And right now, this is definitely the trending market that's really sticking out. So you mentioned that you trade mainly earnings plays. So does that mean, if there's 90 days in a quarter, let's call them 60 of them that you could trade, does that mean you only trade about 20 days a quarter?
No, there's always something coming out. There's always somebody reporting. Okay. So I look at, again, the reason I look at earnings reports is that when do you find the stock that has the most volume? Earnings day. That's generally when you're going to have the explosion of volume. So I don't listen to CNBC. I don't watch CNBC or Fox News, but I do put on the ticker just to see what stocks are going by, because those are the most popular. So if it's popular and it's got a lot of volume, that's when I found that volume weighted average price works its best. So I generally do my best trading around the earnings reports. And I'm also a reversionary trader because I like the fade. The fade was the first trade that I learned. So a gap up stock will generally be met with some sellers at the open because they're selling the news. So the gap is being faded. If that fade then breaks the VWAP, then we're now in a VWAP reversal trade. So what I used to do in 99 has now become a combination of what I do today. So I'm a gap fader first, or a gap buyer. So gapping up, I fade it. We call it fading. I don't know if you call it that as well, but we're fading it or selling the open. And if we get a stock that's gapped down, no matter how bad or good the numbers are, if it's gapped down, we're looking to buy. And then if it breaks over the VWAP, we're adding to it and, getting jiggy.
Something that Brian Shannon told me when he was on the phone with me, was, and I assume that this is part of your style. Let's say that you're fading the open. You're waiting for the initial move to start to break down. You're not like, if it's up $1, you're not immediately putting your sell orders in when it's up $1. Am I right? Or are you waiting for a certain confirmation?
I call it kind of like dipping the toe in. So if something's gapped up big enough and it's already hit, let's say, just throw a random number out there, 67.25 was the pre-market high. At 9:30, if it's at 66.75, I'll dip a toe in right at the open, knowing if it breaks that pre-market high, I'm cutting it free, and I'm going to admit I'm wrong, and it's probably going to be one of those dips and rips. But if I get it right and my toe dip lot starts to work, and then you start to roll, I'll add to it. And then obviously if you go through the VWAP, that's when I'm slamming into it. And then I start looking at prior day VWAP, and that's where I'm looking to already start to cover. So I'm usually, trying to trade that first hour and a half of the day. So I'll take advantage of those first moves and then, call it. I like being done by 11 o'clock. I think this is the greatest job in the world. If you could trade for 2 hours of the day and be done. And one thing that's great about the more people that are doing this now, pre-market is the market now. It used to be pre-market. You had zero liquidity, not a lot of volume. You've got stocks with 50 million shares going through between 7 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock. So if you're taking a look at like something like a CLOV today, I mean, obviously the AMCs and the that ilk stock, you are getting tremendous volume.
Yeah, I heard the other day that AMC options were more liquid than SPY options. More of them traded. That's crazy.
It is
absolutely crazy.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned the VWAP a lot. What is it about the VWAP that you like to use so much? And do you anchor it? Because you mentioned just a minute ago the prior day's VWAP. Does that mean you're anchoring it to yesterday's VWAP and you're looking forward, or you tell me?
I got to tell you, I'll give all the credit to Zach. He showed me this whole setup back in 2012. And for about a year, maybe even more, I just observed it. It didn't really gel with me why any multiple time frame VWAP would be significant. So I guess in the industry, we call it back testing, front testing, forward testing.
Sure.
I basically sat there and watched it happen. So each time we would break the 1 minute, which is basically the living EKG of the market, your 1 minute VWAP would get violated up or down, and you tend to gravitate to a prior day VWAP if there was one nearby. And just from observing that trade, I was like, you know what? This seems to work really well. And because I'm a really big fan of shorting stocks, one of the most important lessons I ever learned is you just can't stay short a stock that's breaking over the VWAP. And that was the first enlightening moment, because I'm a big shorter. And that trade, it started to save me money. So I wasn't making money first trading VWAP, but I was definitely getting out of my shorts that normally would have annihilated me. And especially on a day like today, if I was the trader I used to be in, let's say 2010, I would have been down $250,000 today, easy. But I do not stay short stocks breaking over the VWAP. That is the end of the story for me, no matter how hard it is to realize I'm wrong. And that's a big part of this industry, checking your ego at the door, realizing the market knows more than you, no matter how smart you think you are. And the one thing I learned, you just can't stay short stocks breaking over the VWAP. And that really saved me from myself. And because I started to notice that, I now exploit my former self. So on days like this, I know what I would normally be doing. And I'm like, look at these dummies thinking that this thing's going to go down. It's over the VWAP and the multi-day VWAP. These people are crazy. And I'm like, I'm crazy for buying stocks that are only up 30%, but you can see that this is where they're going to think that thing's going to roll over. Just broke over the VWAP. You can't be short the stock anymore. And that's how you get these parabolic moves. And right now, again, unprecedented time. I don't think I would ever have seen a day like today ever again. And here we are getting every day. That's so sick.
What you just described reminded me of early on in my trading career as well. It was when I wanted to be that fader, but I just never could time it right. And I would just hold on to a position that was going against me, just like as long as humanly possible, until my account blew up, basically. And when seeing and hearing these AMCs, GameStops, things like that, I would have been the person who's buying puts. I would have been the person who's selling calls. Right. And it's such a cliche, such a trite term, but there's the old adage of, cut your loser short, let your winners run, and you can add to your winners as well. That, as I talk to more and more traders, we've done 500 plus episodes now. It just keeps coming up over and over and over. And the people who tell you, you can hold something and eventually it'll come back around. You can roll your option forever and eventually it'll come back. I don't think they actually make money trading. No. That's just my opinion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the adding their good money to the bad money. Yeah. All that. But the one thing you probably heard from all 500 episodes is discipline and defining your trade. So no matter what you're doing, I mean, a lot of people say, Kenny, can I get into this right now? It's up 20%. Can I get into this now? It doubled already from yesterday. I said, listen, it's a different day. Yeah, you missed it from going from 12 to 18, but that doesn't mean it's not going to 25 now. You're taking more risk. Define the trade. If you're buying it here, just remember where it came from, place your stops accordingly, and have your targets. Remain disciplined. It's not a chase if you've got a base. So again, a lot of these stocks, they based out and then they broke out again. So as much as they've seemed to gone parabolic, a lot of these names have consolidated and now they're making another leg. And that next leg up is, I know about that leg because the shorter in me, when the stocks that go parabolic pause, that's when the shorters say, okay, let's reload on our short because now it's about to roll over. Nothing's rolling over. So now that they've reloaded on their short, they've got to cover twice as much, making these stocks do what they're doing. And again, I'm still bewildered about what's happening because we're doing, and by the way, I don't want to date the interview, but I'm out of my mind right now. It's incredible. And I'm still watching it happen, like stocks like Wish, This is just a sham of a website out of China. But once they make their turn and the shorts are on the wrong side, you got an $8 stock going to $12.50 like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that would normally take, remember you when you invest in the market, 18% on a year was a good investment.
Yeah, exactly.
You're making 18% every 20 minutes now. So we're in, this is the wild, wild west, my friend. And like I said, I never thought we'd see these days again.
You mentioned something a minute ago about finding the base and watching the stock going up. There was Michael Covell's Trend Following, one of the best trading books that I've read, and I recommend it to lots of people. He said, it doesn't matter if the stock is going from 5 to 100. If you get in at 20 or 30 or 40, anywhere along that route, as long as you know where you're going to get out, that's the key point to making that trade. And certainly in a market condition like this, knowing when you're going to get out is vitally important to your sanity and your profitability too.
Absolutely.
So are you looking at 1 minute charts? Is that how you trade?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah,
dude,
crazy.
I couldn't do that. That's so much noise. How do you blot out the noise?
Well, the VWAP, when you put it on your chart, your standard platform, is a 1 minute VWAP. So again, there's a lot of noise, but most of the time we have our targets and we have our stops. So we know that noise, and what we call it jiggling or chopping, that's just going to resolve itself, and then the next move is going to happen. So again, yeah, I'm a minute to minute trader, and again, it might not work for everybody, but once you start seeing how specific my trades are, then it gels with a lot of people, because I'm telling you, VWAP dumbs down trading. And if you can make it more simple, that's the greatest thing in the world. So again, there's fear, there's greed, there's momentum. You got the fear of missing out, and then you got your VWAP. So all that other stuff is going on. Stay disciplined with the VWAP. As much as you're crazy and you're trading these momentum stocks, make sure you don't ever get on the wrong side of VWAP, because then you're wrong, and then you're just doing something wrong. So it's a way to, if you're trading VWAP, it's almost like discipline's being instilled in you. So that's what I like. That's what I like mostly about it, because again, I tend to get a little bit, frazzled from time to time, and I've been doing this 20 years. And again, as a shorter, I know my number one discipline: don't stay short stocks that are breaking over the VWAP. And even in that moment, you check your ego at the door, like I said. And if you're short something, you know how difficult it is to cover and go long? You better be really, really, convinced on that move. And that's what VWAP does. That's what VWAP does for me. So I could be short something and I'm like, whoa, this ain't working out. I'm getting out and I'm going long. And that's a tough trade. But VWAP has helped me embrace that trade and really run with it.
So what to you is the meaningful way to read the VWAP, right? Imagine I've never seen a VWAP before.
Yeah.
I hear every once in a while it looks like a moving average, and then there's other people who would say there's no way it looks like a moving average. I've had both of those on the podcast. How do you read it? Like, I understand the going with the trend, being on the right side of the VWAP, but how does Brian read it?
Well, I'll tell you how I read it.
Sure.
The first trade that I started to really appreciate, other than don't stay short stocks that are breaking over the VWAP, was this idea of an accumulation. So let's say you and I work together at a hedge fund. I'm your boss, and I say, listen, I need 600,000 shares of XYZ on the books by the end of the day. You don't care. You know you have an order to get done. You're not going to buy it all at the open, right? So you're going to try to piece into that position throughout the day. You're judged on whether or not your allotment has beat the VWAP. So if the VWAP is at $11.45 and the stock's sitting there at $10.85, you're loving it. You're just accumulating. As it gets closer to the VWAP and you don't have your full allotment, you know you have to beat the VWAP. So as it gets closer to the VWAP, you'll start seeing more buying, because the accumulators need to keep their average price below the VWAP. And that premise is one of the first trades I started taking looking for stocks that were under the VWAP predominantly the whole day. And if there was a late day VWAP break, I think of a trader that's frantically buying more of it to keep his average under the VWAP. And that trade, if you start watching the VWAP on the 1 minute chart, look for stocks that are underneath it. You get that 3 o'clock break or that 3:15 break above the VWAP, generally you trade up into the close. So it's the accumulation break of the VWAP that they need to start frantically buying. So that's one of the basic ways I explain VWAP to people. And that's, again, it makes sense to me. And I think it's an easy way to understand it. And then also at the beginning of the day, it's not as amazingly, thorough because there really hasn't been a lot of volume that went through the market. But like I've been saying, try it. For me, it was about 6 or 8 months when I started realizing, you know what? This is all I'm going to do. I have not traded. I've been using the same charts now since 2012. I have not changed my chart. I have not added anything or taken anything away. I just trade opening, reversion through the VWAP, gap downs going through the VWAP. The only explanation is that as I've been doing this over the last couple of years, more and more quant firms, more and more algorithms, more and more people are subscribing to this idea. And it's now become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if this happens and more people accept that that's a good trade, it's been happening. And I hope that I've been a helpful, cog in this formula because I've been showing at least a couple of thousand people how well this works. And if, I've got, 300 guys that trade with me on a daily basis, they're all convinced and they're telling people. And I'm spreading the gospel. I am just I'm a purveyor of the gospel of VWAP right now, and it's a religion to me. It really is now.
Oh, interesting. So you mentioned before we got started that you make videos and things out there. Where can we watch some of those at?
Okay, so let me make sure everybody gets this disclaimer. Comedian first. A lot of my videos are a little off-putting. I use the blue humor, as my mom says. So I tend to try to make some fun stuff. If you Google me, Kenny Glick, or you look on YouTube, I'm Hit the Bid Radio. So I've got about 3,000 videos that I put out there.
Wow.
A lot of it's self-deprecating, ripping myself for selling stocks too prematurely or holding on to losers too long. So it's kind of like a lesson in my beating up on myself. And then occasionally I do throw an education video on there. But most of the videos on YouTube are, they've been for fun. It's actually a nice documentary of my life. I used to trade with my kids sitting right here, and I would be holding them up as an infant trying to trade with my other hand.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild, pretty impossible. Didn't really work out too well. But, that was the luxury of being a day trader from home. I got to hang out with my two little kids and raise them while I was trying to trade at the same time. So, yeah. So
I just found your channel. It's called Hit the Bid, no space. Hit the Bid. That's Kenny's channel there. So you've done 3,000. I'm just seeing lots of videos, lots of silly faces, a couple without your shirt on.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But I do a live show every day. I do a broadcast with a company called Money Map Press. I do a pre-market show between 8:30 and 9:15. And then I do an hour's worth of intense live trading with people where they're watching me trade in front of a studio audience. And then I go back to my website, hitthebid.com, and I do another hour and a half. And then I do another broadcast with another website where I do a review of the day. So I'm talking a lot. And doing a lot of review. So again, it's very difficult to talk and trade at the same time. So what I've done is I've trained enough people so well that I've given them access to money, and I tell them to just follow my lead. Don't trade anything else but the VWAP reversals. Stay disciplined, and I will give you money. And the people that listen do well, and the people that don't listen are quickly fired. And we flog them. So. And fast forward, I mean, the situation I'm in right now, I need people to work for me because there's so much going on. Now, like I said, I never thought we'd ever be here ever again, to the point where I need to hire people to help me trade. This is we're living 1999 all over again. I just have a lot less hair and I'm probably a lot more angry. So That's about it. I'm angry because I mean, missing opportunities it's still, I don't know, it just enrages me. And today's that day where no matter how well you do, you feel like you've done something wrong after seeing where some of these stocks ended up. I mean, I had stocks that I was trading at 920 today that are still ripping in the aftermarket to 1350. Like, that's not supposed to happen. And there's 20 of them. So it's not unprecedented because I've seen this happen before, but man, oh man, I got to say, like, I never thought I would see it again. I'm saying it over and over again, but it's worth repeating. This is the sickest thing I've ever seen in my life. It really is. It really is.
Well, Kenny, let's tell people where to find you. Watch The Sickest Thing every day. So at hitthebid.com. And then you said you're several other places. Could you go through that list again?
Well, yeah, I work. It's called Money Map Press. I'm on there, but it's like an intra network. They haven't officially gone full mainstream. We've got about 200 or 300 people on there. But what I do and what I'm pride myself in doing is that there's a million guys out there doing what we do. You know, originally it was me and Brian Shannon on YouTube, and now there's 250 guys doing videos on YouTube talking about how smart they are and how awesome they are. What I do is like, look, I know I'm pretty good at what I do. How I go about it doesn't gel with everybody. Some people think I'm quite off-putting, as I've been called. Somebody called me criminally negligent with the way that I trade, because I'm very, again, I'm very in your face, and I'm not gonna, I don't beat around the bush. But what I do is that everybody that comes to the website, there's no credit cards, there's no down payment. I don't need anything from you. Just show up. Show up, pay attention for 2 weeks. If you're starting to feel what's going on in my chat room, then dip in and maybe, join up for a couple of months, or, most of my guys are on yearlies, or I've got guys that have been with me since 2007, which I'm proud to say I've got guys still with me in my chat room since I launched in 2007. So again, the business model has not changed. Come and hang out, get to know me, get to know my 3 main traders that work with me. If you dig it, hang out, pay up, stay with us forever. If you don't dig it, we part as friends, and you can make fun of me in your spare time. So, and again, it's the way that I want to be treated in this industry. Let me kick the tires. Let me see what it's all about. And the best part, if today was somebody's first day in my chat room,
oh yeah,
they've just paid for their lifetime subscription in one day. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Well, cool. That makes a lot of sense. And certainly want to remind everybody that's called hitthebid.com. Kenny, I've really appreciated you coming online today, sharing with us some of your insight and everything. And we want to make sure everyone heads over to hitthebid.com or the Hit the Bid YouTube channel to see Kenny acting up a little bit. But that'll be perfect. Kenny, thank you so much for coming online today.
Thanks very much. Yeah, listen, you should come on my show too. We do a Thursday night gig. We have some fun. We do a Thursday night session where we're letting it loose, having a couple of cocktails, and we just crunch charts. We do a lot about earnings. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Thanks very much. And anybody, contact me, and we'll give you a username and a password, and come see what we're all about.
Very cool. Well, Kenny, thank you so much for your time, and thank you guys for tuning into today's How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and enable notifications. That way you never miss any of the tools, tips, and tricks we upload every single week to help you trade faster and trade smarter. I'll see you in the next episode. Okay, so what'd you think? That was pretty incredible, right? Now, if you liked that, that's only a taste, only a sample of what you're going to find in the full AI stock trading system. And I really highly encourage you to go and check this out. Obviously, you are interested in learning and how to trade, and that's why you're listening to this podcast. Now, I'm going to take and download my entire trading system that I use day in and day out onto you. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is over at the AIStockTradingSystem.com. You're going to get phase 1, 2, and 3, several bonuses, And on top of that, I'm going to walk you through over a dozen trades that I put on inside of my account, holding your hand and showing you exactly how I got in, how I got out, how I use the artificial intelligence data, and how this could work inside of your own trading portfolio on a daily basis. So make sure you head on over to AIStockTradingSystem.com. That's AIStockTradingSystem.com to learn more and to get started and to download my decade plus worth of trading experience into your hands so you can start using the AI stock trading system today, the 5-step system to take the guesswork out of trading. Hey, if you like this video, let me know by leaving me a like below, and then subscribe and share it with somebody you think could use it as well. Be sure to comment below with your biggest takeaway from this episode and any suggestions you have for future episodes. And finally, make sure you watch these other videos to help you trade faster and trade smarter, and I'll see you on the next episode.